So we're here at AUSA at the Sig Sauer booth, and we're looking at the next generation squad weapon. Now that's been in the headlines for a number of years, and right here we have the XM7, which is basically the replacement for the M16 or the M4. It's not technically a carbine, it is a rifle, but it's going to be replacing that for the close combat forces, such as your infantry, paratroopers, scouts, combat engineers. They'll be carrying that as their primary weapon. Over here we have the XM250, that's going to be replacing the M249 SAW. It will basically be the light machine gun for the squad and even the platoon. Both are going to be chambered in the 6.8 millimeter caliber. Now that's a newly created round. Sig is building that round, the Army is building that round. It basically cuts the difference between the existing 5.56 millimeter round that's present in the SAW and in the M4, but is smaller than and lighter than the 7.62 millimeter in the M240, a little bit of a heavier or more of a medium machine gun. Now the 6.8 millimeter gives the performance of a 7.62, sometimes even better, but in a smaller package, giving people more accuracy, giving shooters more distance and range. Some of the new news of this is the feeling. Basically, the Army is announcing unit by unit how it's rolling this out each fiscal year. Now this past year, in the spring, the 101st Airborne Division was the first to field this weapons package, along with its new optic and other accessories. Coming in this next fiscal year, basically starting at the end of 2024 through and into mid-2025, you have most of the units starting out in the Pacific because that's where the Army's seeing its biggest threat. It wants its best and newest equipment with units going to the Pacific to counter China and any kind of problems they might face there. Now the units there are the 25th Infantry Division. They're based out of Hawaii. They're going to be the kind of point person, point unit basically for the area on anything combat related in the Pacific for the most part. You also have units such as 10th Mountain and Fort Drum that will deploy overseas to Europe, but also can help out in the Pacific. More units from the 101st are going to be getting that weapon as well. And of course, there's actually some units in the Reserve and the Guard that have been outfitted for this, specific to their Pacific mission. So, even though they're in the Guard and Reserve, and historically, those units have gotten the equipment last or older, later equipment or later fieldings, they're getting it first just to that unit because they might be helping out, assisting in any kind of operation, training, exercise, or potentially any conflict in the Pacific due to their geographic assignment. Now, in addition to those fieldings, there's some new developments coming with the optic. The optic is called basically a fire control. So standard ways we would think about an optic was, a scope, you look through the standard glass, you see your reticle, you align on your target. But optics these days, we call them fire control for a reason, because they can do aiming lasers built in, they can have ballistics calculators and different types of data packages. Basically the new optic, the XM157, is built by Vortex and Shelter Wings, a separate company from Sig Sauer. They're creating this optic to pretty much give all those tools that a sniper would have had in past conflicts into the standard hands of a basic infantryman to adjust fire on the fly, to use on any kind of weapon system. Almost any weapon in the Army's inventory is going to have a ballistics package in that computer. So you could strap it onto an M4, you can mount it onto the XM7, the XM250, calibrate it in minutes probably, and be right on target. Now what they're doing to upgrade that is they want better sensors. I mean, they're having good accuracy at ranges, they want to be able to calculate distance, barometric pressure, all kinds of things that go into the flight of the bullet's path as it reaches the target. And those are the upgrades they're looking for. The Army's announced recently that they're going to be showing to industry some of what they want out of future sensor packages for the optic, which is a key piece of how this system is going to work in any kind of future combat, keeping soldiers lethal and accurate on the battlefield. So these are obviously not to real size, okay? These are much larger just to show a difference. Sometimes it's difficult to see on a camera, in a photo, or even in a diagram, the differences between, say, a 5.56 round, which people are very familiar with, 7.62, which people are also very familiar with, and the new 6.8. So right now, right here, you see the different weapon calibers lined up. Now, the 7.62 is your standard. It goes into the, say, M240 machine gun. It's a little bit heavier machine gun, but classified as a medium machine gun. It's been in the arsenal. That caliber's been in the arsenal since the early 1900s, actually. The 5.56 is the smallest you see here. That's what's currently fielded in the M4, the M16, and the SAW. It's a lighter round developed out of a varmint cartridge many decades ago. First fielded to the Army with the M16 in, I believe, 1967. Between these two, you have 6.5 and 6.8. Now the 6.5 is close to the 6.8, but not exactly what we see with the 6.8. That's been used by the SOCOM community, Special Operations Command, for different types of weapons and calibers, and even in sniper rounds. The 6.8 is a wholly new developed cartridge and caliber and round, developed by the Army, being built by Sig, Sig at one of their ammunition plants, as well as there's a line being built at the Army's official Lake City ammunition plant just to build 6.8 millimeter. They need to build up a stockpile of this ammunition for operational units to be able to rotate and have plenty of rounds should they have to go to combat, but also have rounds to train with. So right now they're developing reduced range training rounds. So basically you could use a 6.8 millimeter on a 5.56 range and not go past the distance of the range for safety purposes. So you could still practice your fire and maneuver within a 300 meter range with a 6.8 without having to worry about shooting past where you need to shoot, say on a 5.56 range. Another interesting development they're working on now on the JPEO, or Joint Program Executive Officer Ammunition and Armaments for the Army, that's in Picatinny, New Jersey. Picatinny Arsenal, New Jersey, sorry. That is actually going to develop a one-way tracer round. So we always think of tracers of having, the enemy can see where it's shooting from because it's lit the entire time. The one-way luminescent tracer round is a project that's been in development for years for all these small calibers, and now they're adding 6.8 to it. And that's going to give the ability, once it's fielded, to shoot, and you can see where your tracer round is going, but the enemy can't see where it's coming from. And that's going to create a very tactical advantage for the shooter on the battlefield to be able to conceal their position, direct fires onto a target, accumulate fires from other platforms onto that target using tracers, but not be seen at the same time. So there's a lot of development, not just with the weapon systems, but also with the ammo that's going to affect existing legacy platforms like the 5.56 and the 7.62, and of course, the new 6.8 millimeter round. This is Todd South with Army Times.